All right, we are live. We're gonna get to recapping today's games. We decided to test if Young Zumo, our TV, our terrible studio TV, could handle the 4K option. I think he's kind of doing okay. Like, this is not only we put him in 4K, but we also switched to the ESPN in 4K resolution. I think he's hanging in there.
Joe, he's in black and white now.
It's not black. Okay, it is kind of like sepia color that we've got going on here.
It's not good. Zumo is in a bad spot, and you're torturing him.
I think he's doing okay.
I would wager he's not.
You think that he's not surviving?
If Zumo can make it to the end of the fourth quarter, I'll give you 5 right out of my pocket.
So the Zumo Element TV, for the new listeners who are wondering what the hell we're talking about, is the one that we have in the studio. I deliberately purchased the cheapest TV that I could find at Walmart. This was a $140 TV. It's the quality of a monitor that you would find in a fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
We're not even talking about a McDonald's. We're talking about like a local spot. Like 4 generations too late. It claims to be a 4K television. I would say the picture quality is clear, but it's moving at a very slow rate.
I would disagree with you. I don't think the box even had smart on it when we were buying it. I think it just said TV.
Yeah, it didn't even works.
Yeah, there's no adjective that's thrown on this thing. It's literally just pixels on screen.
All right, we are going to recap a lot of the action that is happening here for week 5 of college football. We're going to hit the break. We're going to talk about Bet Online. Before we do, though, let's take a quick second.
And now back to your regular programming.
If you speak better to yourself.
You showed up for like probably the dumbest conversation we've ever had on this show.
Let's have that smile again.
Tell me how that happens. Physically should not happen.
Relax.
If you say it
Give me as well.
3 times a day, God will line it up.
He's just an absolute hack, and he gets his ass kicked by his teammates every week. It's just terrible.
Welcome back to Hack City. I'm Joe DeLeone. With me is my co-host, former teammate, and roommate from the University of Rhode Island. Oh my God, I'm butchering this open. Man, if you can't tell, we're doing this show at 10:47. College football week 5. Very unexpected. Extremely unexpected with some of these results. We're going to talk about this Georgia-Alabama game that is closing out as we're doing this show live. We're also going to talk about Notre Dame and Louisville's insanely boring game that Notre Dame just kind of eked its way out at the end. It's a strong, nice victory. It's keeping the playoff hopes alive, but not exactly a very exciting game of football. We're going to get to that, as well as Kansas State's ass whooping on Oklahoma State. Ole Miss upset by Kentucky. And, of course, the thriller between Miami and Virginia Tech. Before, though, Sean, where can our listeners go and bet on college football or the NFL tomorrow and be like me, who was perfect on the day, completely perfect? Where can they go?
That'd be Bet Online. Joe had a hot day. I had a decent day. You got to change him back. I had a decent day betting. Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform. If you took Young Zumo bailing out of the 4K experience in under 5 minutes, you hit.
That was literally 3 minutes. We've been live for 3 minutes. We did it at the beginning of the stream, and he gave up. He literally gave
He can't handle it. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games.
Oh,
you think
God.
You know your stuff? Get in on their $200,000 mega contest. Pick 5 games to spread against the spread every single week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200K. When the game's over, if you're a big winner, head on over to their online casino. You got blackjack, you got poker, you got a bunch of slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here.
Zumo is so cooked right now that I can't even put him in 1080. It's only letting me, the only option it's giving me is 720.
Just let him chill at 720. I don't know why you keep on pushing him past his limits. He can't handle it.
Oh,
this is
poor
like
bastard.
This is like making an 8th grader get under a 185-pound bar and saying, "Go ahead, kid, bench it 10 times." It's like, not going to happen.
It's like demanding a hamster completely power our apartment and expecting him to get the job done. All right, we've got college football to talk about. We're going to do the Georgia-Alabama game at the end just because this game's still going on, but I think we all can say pretty confidently that Alabama has won that football game. We have to start by turning our direction here first. Ole Miss upset by Kentucky 20-17. It was one of those games where in the opening slate, we were pretty locked in with Kansas State, Oklahoma State, that it didn't really cross our minds that this Ole Miss game could end up being close. And then you kind of kept peering over. And then it came down to the end of the game after Kansas State was walloping Oklahoma State. It was like, oh my God, we need to put this on the big TV.
Yeah.
Fourth quarter was a total mess for Ole Miss. Unfinished drives, turnovers, sacks, just poor decision after poor decision. The weird thing is it felt like offensively and defensively, if you just look at the stat sheet, it doesn't look like a totally heinous performance for this Ole Miss team, but it was just all unfinished drives, points left on the field. I come back to one key thing here, and I am a Lane Kiffin supporter. I love Lane Kiffin. I think he's great for college football. I think he's a great head coach, but by God, man, he can't get past the accusations that he can't win a damn big game. He can't exceed the expectations. He can't live up to the hype. Any minute that he gets hyped up and this Ole Miss team is donned as a potential SEC favorite, now is the year to go on a run. Georgia is showing some signs of weakness. And everything that we knew from last year is still true. Alabama's the best team, apparently, and Ole Miss pisses down their leg. What the actual hell?
This game raises a lot of unfortunate questions about Lane Kiffin because it's cool to like Lane. Lane's a cool coach to root for. He was a crazy badass in the NFL. He's been a heel at a lot of destinations. Then he goes to Ole Miss, revives that program, makes them fun, has good teams. And then the whole shtick has been he can't beat Alabama at the end of the year. Okay, he's still doing a lot of cool stuff outside of it. His transfer portal work has been excellent. His roster creation and sometimes his offensive creation is very good. But this isn't even a loss where you can stand by Lane and say, oh, this was cool. I'm still standing by Lane. You can't stand by him. This was an uncool, lame loss to Kentucky, and Kentucky just played better football through and through. They tackled better. They were more composed down the stretch. Their defense was more stout. Top to bottom, Ole Miss looked sleepy, and it looked like they didn't want to be there. And it hurts Jackson Dart's Heisman run, this loss, because the whole team let him down.
Yeah. I mean,
this crushes his Heisman run.
He's going to be boxed out of it. The craziest part about this is that this wasn't like the best example I can think of. The Notre Dame NIU loss, it's not like that where first game, you're kind of working through some things, and those mistakes were accentuated against an opponent that was relentless, and you came out flat.
Yeah.
They were demolishing, like smoking everybody that they were playing. They were putting up insane numbers. Trey Harris had 600 something receiving yards up until this point, and none of that showed up. Look, I get that this Kentucky defense was that knocking?
I don't know. It's probably the AC. I think we're all good.
Okay, I thought someone was knocking on our door. Sorry. That was insanely distracting. It's the circumstance here with Ole Miss in this game that you're going up against a giant killer defense, apparently, with Kentucky. Their offensive woes are a separate discussion that I don't even want to spend time on today. It's a great win. Great job by Stoops for getting the dub.
You're not pumped up about Vandegrift, man? How could you not be? Big man in the big blue? You got to be excited.
I get that defense is a tough out, but if you're supposed to be the most prolific offense in the SEC, how are you going to show up in that situation and get held to 17 points? Again, all those red zone trips, all those times where you were close to the 50-yard line and just completely stalled out, the bad, messy plays that we've seen in the bad performances that Lane Kiffin has had as a play caller and a head coach, it all showed up in this situation. I know I hate being the overly reactionary on shows like this, and then we're doing it the night of. But I can't help but sit here and say that I'm out. I'm sure Ole Miss could be a playoff team and will be one of the playoff teams in conversation, but how am I supposed to expect that they're not going to falter when there is another high expectation game? I'm sure that they're going to get a win like they did last year when they beat LSU. That was like a big win that they got, and they finished the season pretty strong. But where is the buy-in? What am I supposed to buy into when they beat up a bunch of nobody opponents, and then now you face Kentucky, who's middle of the pack to the back end of the conference, and you can't muster more than 17 points?
No, it's too early. It's too early for them to have this crazy dropped loss. They didn't have enough of a resume up until now. Kentucky building a hell of a resume so far this season. Ole Miss, great. You beat the soft ones. You beat the guys that you really should beat, and you lost to an SEC team that's middle of the pack. That helps you in no way. And now you're going to be in a position where, back to Notre Dame, you're going to be digging yourself out of this massive trench for the rest of the season, and you're going to be hoping that other good teams just falter down the stretch, have a crazy loss like this. That is no way to go through a college football season. That is a nerve-wracking experience for players to have to go out and say, no matter how well we play, because we took that one game off, because I may have taken those 5 plays off against Kentucky, now our games are not going to, our destiny is not in our hands. We have to get help. We have to get lucky. And maybe Ole Miss is a team that finally does get lucky, but this loss incites no confidence for anybody, and especially an Ole Miss fan, to think that they're going to make a legitimate push down the stretch.
Maybe they're just merchants of banging away at every single bad team that they're going to play for the rest of the year, and that they're going to finish with a good record. But like, hell, I wouldn't go out of my way to pick them to win a playoff game. I'm curious, and I haven't done any due diligence to kind of check in on the sanity of Ole Miss fans right now. I'm very curious because when Lane Kiffin's name was brought up early this season for the Florida job, a lot of Ole Miss fans were very quick to yell and be very aggressive about, like, there's no shot that
They're
leaves.
very dismissive about it.
Very dismissive. Like everyone would jump in and say, why would you even expect this to happen? I'm curious to see if there is any frustration that they're like starting to get sick of this.
I would say a loss like this, it's not losing to Alabama again, which if you're Ole Miss and you lose to Alabama, reality check, it's probably going to happen more than it doesn't. But losses like this could push the university away from Lane Kiffin and Lane Kiffin away from the university because something isn't clicking. He's under contract until 2029. I know he's going to keep on getting more bonuses, whatever. Right. It's enough money. I think that he does maybe take a legitimate look at that market, whereas before he's just been a flirt. He's been a flirt with the teams in the offseason. Let's see. Oh, it's just a fun name to bring up because he's a fun name to bring up. But now this offseason, depending on if they pick themselves off the mat or not, he could be legitimately throwing his hat in the ring for whatever jobs do open up. And it could be Florida. Maybe Florida is a better spot for him. I can't imagine that all of his work to build this Ole Miss roster through the portal and recruiting is better or worse than Florida's roster, though, at this point.
I guess you bring up the final thought on this. That's like the angle to look at this situation is that if there is any desire for Florida to come into this conversation and to offer him that role, if that's the direction that they're going in, if he is frustrated by the response by Ole Miss fans, like, I really would not be stunned for him to just be like, I'm done. I'm over this. I can't get where I thought I could get with this Ole Miss team. Yeah. I'm going to try it at Florida. And he's been quick to jump ship elsewhere. So it's not like he's not afraid to do so.
I would agree. But if he feels like he reaches his ceiling at Ole Miss, then that's where you feel like you're getting, because you're not going to motivate yourself any more than what you think if you're especially already capped out.
Speaking of a team's ceiling, Notre Dame, 31-24. This was a really boring game for anybody who watched it. As a Notre Dame fan, it does at least make me feel a little bit good. We can hang on to the last remaining shred of possibility that we can get into the playoff. I said this coming into the week on my BR stream. I said that this is a must-win situation. The season is on the line. That is not a hot take. That's not a crazy thing to say. And they stepped up to the plate. My big thing for this game, and I think that has to be the build-off point, you don't play anybody for a very long time until you play USC. You kind of just have to sit and wait and pray to hell pray to God.
You know what? Maybe you know what? For such a godly institution, bad they've done. Maybe they should start praying to hell.
Sorry, Notre Dame fans. That was no, not the right thing to say. You need to pray that all of the teams that you are facing the rest of this year that have rankable resumes, Texas A&M, Louisville, if Navy ends up being ranked, it does not. It is such a.
What are you talking about?
Such,
the midshipmen are rolling.
I know. But if they're ranked and you beat them, it's not the same. It's not the same as like Tennessee saying that they've got a ranked win or.
I've just said I remember this point that you made last year when Notre Dame was playing Navy. You said this Notre Dame Navy game is always tight. It's always gritty. It's a respected opponent from both sides. You have to respect Navy.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying don't respect Navy, but I really, and I did this on the Bleacher Report stream because somebody brought it up and they're like, well, what if this happens with Notre Dame and Navy is ranked and all that stuff? And afterwards I was thinking to myself, like, why did I entertain that thought? Because yes, that helps Notre Dame's case in just like a total black and white situation, ranked win, if we're just adding that in a tally and we're comparing teams. But the context of beating Navy isn't exactly as impressive as Penn State beating Illinois tonight, or Ohio State going on and say they beat Oregon. Those are not comparable wins. So forget that for a second. I think that going forward for Notre Dame, what was impressive is reassurance that their defense could get huge stops on 3rd and 4th down. They're that good. They're great at tackling, great in coverage. They force turnovers. In offense, they're finally starting to open things up. Like, it actually felt like there was a directive of, we're going to lay the bait. We're going to hope that Louisville is going to take the bait.
Yeah.
And we're going to realize and set up the trap. Eventually, we're going to take a couple of, not big shots, throw the ball over the top, and we're going to have some wide open receivers.
That worked for them. And I'll give a nod to Notre Dame before going through their comedy of errors. Their defense today played faster than they had all year. The linebackers flew around. The DBs were hitting. I thought the D-line wasn't terrible, which they shouldn't be terrible. They should be.
Well, they're very banged up. So like that's the kind of to you saying that, it sounds like, just from like an outsider's perspective without that context, yeah, they're not playing great right now because they're super injured.
But the rest of their defense stepped up, and that was good to say. I mean, when they hawked down the Louisville quarterback, punched the ball out early in the first quarter, that's something that a lazy, sleepy, taking the opponent for granted Notre Dame team would not do. So I'm going to give the nod there. But, Joe, you have to respect that Notre Dame has a legitimate shot to the CFP in a respected manner. They get Stanford. They get Georgia Tech.
All right, shut your mouth.
Don't worry.
And then
You could get a big win against Florida State. You could get a big win.
None of those are respectable wins.
What about
I'm not going to play this game with you, and I hope that most Notre Dame fans who sub to this channel are realistic enough to understand that none of the wins that you have on the rest of the schedule will mean anything except for saying that they were wins.
I am Notre Dame superfan number 1 this year.
Says the asshole wearing the USC hat.
I took Notre Dame as one of my bets this week, and they hit. I won money on Notre Dame today. They were solid.
You're a bad friend. Bad person, bad friend.
I am trying to rally Notre Dame so no one has to get in a November funk when they're playing nobodies. If everyone stays positive, pulls the rope in the same direction, maybe we all can will the CFP to let us in, not out of pity, but out of true gratitude for us turning the season around. And I'm saying us.
It's going to hit like crack for the Notre Dame haters when the first CFP rank, because Notre Dame is ranked moderately high, and they're going to just slowly creep their way up in the AP poll, because the way that the AP poll works is that those voters just make a couple adjustments every single week. When somebody loses, they'll move them back, and then somebody gets slid up a little bit. That's all that happens. It's really lazy voting. As 2 national voters on the FCS poll, we try not to do that. But it's going to hit like crack for the Notre Dame haters that when the first playoff ranking comes out, and when Notre Dame's 8 in the AP poll,
that's
true. 8 in the AP poll. This is going to happen. They're going to be 8 in the AP poll, and then the playoff ranking, the first playoff ranking is going to come out, and they're going to be 19th. They're going to be there's going to be so much separation between that expectation and the current ranking, and I'm. There are some sane Notre Dame fans, and I communicate with a lot of them, and I love talking to them because they understand. But there are some crazies out there, and I love you guys equally too, that are just going to lose their minds when that happens.
My final point on this Notre Dame topic, at least
Sean did bet on Notre Dame. I did not bet on Notre Dame. I have never bet on them in my life, nor will I ever.
At least the Notre Dame games are easy to watch on Peacock. You guys are... I didn't hear you ranting and raving about it earlier. I felt like this would be a good forum for it. that was embarrassing to put the Notre Dame Louisville on Peacock.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing? And I know it's a big enough game where I could see like the corporate greed math to say, oh, let's stick them on our subscription service.
First big ranked game that we have. Let's stick it on the subscription service, and then we can claim that because the Penn State Illinois game starts at 7:30 and we didn't want to have any bump up, we had to stick it on there. Apparently, Ross Dellinger brought this up on CFB this week, which is the Yahoo Sports college podcast. Apparently, the administration at Notre Dame was like, hey, can you guys not do this? And they just completely said no. They just completely turned them away. They said, no, we're sticking this on Peacock. Yeah, Sean had to listen to me scream and yell because it wouldn't let me change my payment method because the original subscription was through Xfinity, and my family no longer has Xfinity. So then we had to figure out how to create a new account, and it wouldn't fucking let us. So I spent 30 minutes, and we missed the first 30 minutes of the game. And then on top, while I'm dealing with this, I got my brother who's bitching and not wanting to help me. I got my dad who's in Italy right now. And then he's yelling because he can't figure it out. I'm getting texts like, can one of you fucking figure this out? Can one of you just help out and so that I can watch this game? Ungodly. And I said that on the BR stream on Wednesday. I literally brought this up. It is insufferable. I know that my dad's going to be yelling at me. It's the worst. This is who you're affecting. You're not affecting us. You're not we're going to figure out how to eventually be able to turn it on. The adults that are just in their 60s and 50s that don't want to have to figure out how to sign up and operate another streaming service.
It's not just the sign up, which I think the regular Joe college football fan, that's where they feel insulted, like they're being taken advantage of, is you want more money out of my pocket for a streaming service I'm going to have to cancel at the end of the season. It's the complications that happen if you have the service and the hoops you have to jump through just to watch the game if there is some minor change. There's an email, there's a verification code, there's a new email that you need to log in. It's a total mess, and people are not able to truly handle it. I don't see, we're still too far away from streaming being the true number one destination for watching sports. I think 4 or 5 years, maybe we get it fleshed out. But right now, the bones are, it's still just the bones. It's not a fully complete finished product.
People definitely aren't here to talk about the semantics of streaming. A couple of people pointing out, though, that we have Kirby might have a stroke before this game is over, is a funny comment by Sam. UJ is now down by 5. They just scored. There's 5 minutes to go. We're going to be kind of monitoring this and checking in. Oh, my God. Completely botched kick return. What? Did he fair catch that? Does that count?
I think he just dropped that thing. Oh, God.
What is the result here? Is the ball on the 2?
All
okay,
right.
so no, there's no fair catch.
He just muffed it.
Completely muffed it. Good heads up play. Oh my God.
This is subtly turning into a watch along, but
yeah, well, we're gonna keep monitoring this, and we're gonna definitely react as soon as the game ends. What was a wild outcome is what happened on Friday night. We were standing in a bar in Hoboken, and the reaction from the crowd on the final play was pretty nuts. I think we can all sit here and agree, and we don't need to rehash was it a possession or not. Nobody had the football. The ball was floating amongst a mass of just bodies and then rolled onto the ground, despite the idiots standing at the bar trying to claim that the number 9 has it. Look, it's in his hand. It's in his hand.
There's some Tech fan behind us.
One finger was on the football does not indicate possession. But again, we move past that. But I'm still in on Miami, and I said this, and this is kind of like a lame nothing take, because there's no real analysis that goes into it. Sometimes there's teams certain years that are just super lucky that when they're not playing their best game and things wildly sway in the opposite direction, they still come away with a win. To win and find a way to come out of that surviving with that situation where there was a near Hail Mary is insane luck. Luck that Mario Cristobal has not had when he's at Miami. Again, there is no reality that factors into the success in that game. But what I will say, the pendulum here for the Cam Ward experience. Cam Ward is going to have backbreaking interceptions. He's going to make mistakes. He is a risk taker. The risks that he takes that lead to touchdowns are jaw-dropping.
Yeah.
They're amazing. They get you juiced up as a fan, and when they pay off and you're winning by 3 scores, you feel unstoppable. But when your defense can't make the plays that they need to, and they're allowing Kyron Drones to escape the pocket, he's able to connect with his receivers. They need to be, I think, defensively just a little bit more sound. I think if there's any other remaining games on their schedule where they've got mobile quarterbacks, I am going to circle those games, and I'm going to need to see if that defense can step up better and play better than what they did against Kyron Drones.
Yeah, Virginia Tech had a couple things that were working really well for them. Drones appeared to be coated in Vaseline and baby oil the entire game. Where no diddy, where nobody could get him down on the first sack attempt, which you know what? Good for him. He's a Division I college quarterback that is mobile and strong. He can break a sack every now and then. Cam Ward still stepped up. 343, 4 touchdowns. I'm never going to sneeze at that. I'm never going to say, oh, he could have done more. One was a tip drill pick. The other pick,
the first one's kind of a hard.
Virginia Tech ran a beautiful zone just about the entire game. And Cam Ward made him pay for it a good amount. But the zone that they had going on to the outside was just lethal. And he looked down his receivers a little too long a couple times. But for the most part, if you were a Miami fan, first time in a while, you're still feeling pretty confident with the offense. Even when they were down big, you still felt kind of confident that Cam Ward was going to be able to crawl them back in, and he did, and everybody was sitting there happy. And what did I say at the beginning of the year, Joe? I said Miami might be a team of destiny this year because of all the nut shit that happened last year.
Yeah.
All the odd coaching karma, all the crazy decisions that Mario made, and all the balls that didn't bounce their way. Football is a game of heads and tails, 50-50. It's the most equal opportunity sport in all of athletics. So eventually, the karma is going to swing back your way, and you're going to get a nice one like you did on Friday night. So Miami fans, don't get too overconfident. I would just try to stay at the same little pulse that you've been riding on as of late. Virginia Tech played up. Don't get high. Don't get down.
There was a clip I saw that they panned to a guy who was very clearly doing some sort of a bump with on his finger.
Oh yeah,
he was in his mid to late 40s. He was wearing an ill-fitting retro T-shirt, and he looked like the absolute crowd of a guy, or the type of guy. Oh my God, Georgia's gonna blow that, or Alabama's blowing this. Oh my God!
Are you kidding me?
This is insane. Oh my God. So many people got up and turned away from this game, and they're going for 2. Okay, well, there's 2:30 left on the clock. We're not here to live react to this. We're gonna wait until this game ends we're gonna be talking about the complete meltdown in the second half.
Yeah, stick around. There's gonna be a lot of thoughts on this game.
Oh my God. To get back to another team, though, that almost melted down, Miami versus Virginia Tech. They still have the makings, though, to kind of round out this thought before we move on to another one of these games. They still have the makings, in my opinion, of being that top ACC team. I have not seen another ACC program really shine the way that Miami has up until this point. And I always say this, and it's one of the biggest cliches that I think is reiterated, regurgitated in media. Good teams find ways to win when they're playing bad. And that's exactly what happened in that game. They're completely off kilter. The defense is not rallying and tackling the way that they could have. You had the turnovers that happened in this game that led to just huge plays and points for Virginia Tech. You're down multiple scores. A great team will find ways to will themselves back into it and put themselves in a position to win. And more importantly, you have to give a ton of praise for Cam Ward for the way that he orchestrated that final drive and was able to finish that thing out. The performance that Cam Ward had in that game, I don't know if the 2 interceptions are enough to remove him from the Heisman conversation, but I will argue that the touchdowns that he threw and the plays that he made in the second half absolutely brought himself back to life in that convo.
I think that I would not remove him at all far. I mean, there's other players that I thought tonight that I was going to be inserting Jalen Milroe and removing Carson Beck. But now it's all getting flipped on its head. Cam Ward is still one of the most dynamic and exciting players in college football. You have Jeanty, you have Hunter, Ward, and then one of these, either the Georgia quarterback or Alabama quarterback. That's how it's going to shake out, I think, as of right now, for true Heisman consideration. Ward is a dude, and there were times just sitting and watching that game where it was shoulder tap throw where I got it. If you were looking at the Rutgers game, I'd have to tap you and say, look what this dude just did. Look at the arm slot he's throwing with. He's too exciting and he's too good. The nonchalant, laissez-faire attitude that he plays football with,
Yeah.
people can criticize that. I won't. That is like flow state permanently. It's awesome to see, especially for Miami to get back.
And that's what's made. Oh my God, Ryan Williams!
Oh
This is
my
the game of the
God.
year, and we're live during this as this.
Oh my God! What the shit am I watching right now?
I said to Sean at 10:20, this game's over. We're gonna go. Let's go live at 10:45. What the hell just happened? This is insane.
I can't believe. I just genuinely cannot believe how this game is going. There's still too much time on the clock.
Yeah, they kind of scored a little bit too quickly. What?
Dude.
I mean, do we need to wait until midnight to go live going for? I mean, I guess
don't know.
this is a
Dude.
mistake.
Dude, I don't know anymore.
What is happening?
This was the most DOA game that we could have even been had at the 7:30 slate.
Nice ham-fisted Dos Equis advertisement. Go for Dos. Okay.
Oh, and now maybe it's possible overtime. This is unbelievable.
Okay, so they're up by 7 now. All right, so we're still monitoring this. We just talked about the Miami game. This is gonna be hell to cut up later because there's gonna be so many interjections. Got to give a lot of credit to the performance by Kansas State today, Sean. They were completely walloped last week against BYU.
Yeah.
They looked I don't want to say they looked ill-prepared because that game, they started off strong and then it just got completely away from them against BYU. It is so hard at night to play a good game at BYU. It's one of those weird black holes that you step into, like you're in another dimension, like you just completely got taken off this planet and were sent somewhere else trying to play in that stadium. The nicest, toughest fans that you're going to ever have to deal with. Like after that game, Avery Johnson had like some sort of a fund where every time he scored a touchdown, he was going to donate towards it. The BYU fans, after they kicked the shit out of him, donated $20,000 towards his charity fund.
It's crazy.
It's the most insane thing. But they bounced back going up against an Oklahoma State team that is really struggling to figure out what their identity is. And they blew past them. Like it was second half, not even close, completely stepped past them. It felt like that game was over as soon as that third quarter started. All the credit goes to DJ Giddens, Avery Johnson in the run game, stepping up and making plays. And I got to give credit to the Kansas State secondary, which has been a bit suspect in the past few weeks, showing some signs of life that they could create turnovers and take advantage of a very, very turnover-prone quarterback in Alan Bowman.
Yeah, Alan Bowman was put on Get a Job Watch by Joe DeLeone.
Oh, yeah. So there were
today.
lots of yelling about it's time to get the job.
I don't know why you're knocking him. He threw 50 times this game. He completed 26 of those. So he had about a 51.5. 2 interceptions.
There could have been, I think, like 4 or 5 in this. You got up for a couple of them, and I think you heard me yelling, "Oh my God!"
I did.
What the hell? There were a lot of there was one pick that he threw. The play prior was triple coverage, not even an inch of separation. Just threw into the tightest pocket of 3 defenders I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Doesn't come down with it. And then the following play throws to a wide open defender. He loves throwing to opposing defensive backs.
Joe, he loves throwing to his receivers also because he threw for 364 yards today.
Because they had to run, they had to throw the ball that much. That was why. Can you praise Kansas State for 2 seconds? You're talking about a quarterback who looked like ass.
I want him to stay in college football forever. I want NIL 2.0 to allow people to just stay and keep playing college football. It's just make it the minor leagues. Let the 40 teams just keep the guys that can't make the NFL. Make them permanent mainstays of their institutions. Kansas State, though, I think they don't play Utah on their schedule this year. Disappointing. But this could be leading to an all-time Big 12 matchup in the championship game between those two. I expect it to be K-State and Utah. They seem to be the class of the Big 12 so far. And I've been teetering all season in the BYU game it kind of pushed me off of, okay, maybe Utah's going to run away with it. This game today, Oklahoma State, you never know what you're going to get with them. And Kansas State had their way. So that makes me more and more excited to see how this conference shakes out at the end of the season, how much better Avery Johnson can be if they can stick with the run. I mean, DJ Giddens today was unstoppable, 187 and a tud. And then additionally, who's their number 2 back? Oh, Avery Johnson, the quarterback, who had 2 on the ground also in 60 yards. They're a dynamic enough running team where I think that they can continue to control Big 12 games and move forward in a rather dominant fashion, which just leads to a very, very fun end of the season to see who gets that final bid. And if they're good enough and teams like Ole Miss keep on losing, maybe there are 2 Big 12 teams at the end of the year in the CFP. I doubt it.
No,
I doubt it.
No,
but
no,
you gotta say maybe.
No.
There's still a chance Notre Dame loses, and then
hold
they
on.
get booted.
I think today reminded us very quickly that there is 1,000% not going to be a second Big 12 team because they're just going to keep eating each other. They're just going to keep eating each other. BYU almost blundered away a game against Baylor. They still finished off the game strong. Look, UCF was supposed to be this potential rising team, and Colorado smoked them. Colorado has more life than we anticipated. I think reality does eventually set in. The Big 12 is a chaos pit. I love it for what it is, but when you have the chaotic just uncertainty on a week-to-week basis, they're not going to produce a champion that has a better record than 10-2, meaning that the second best team is probably going to be 9-3, their best win being over an unranked or a very lowly ranked Big 12 team. I'm not completely bought out on that. I don't think that there's any life to that possibility.
I think that there's still life. I think that there could be some Big Ten faltering. I think that the SEC probably still ends up with 4, at least 4, depending on how Ole Miss closes their season. I'm not ruling it out because there are 2 exciting teams in the Big 12. The others are the others, and they will cannibalize each other. But Utah and K-State stay out of each other's way. If they just roll everybody up in their blunts and smoke them, and at the end of the year they face off, duel to the death, so be it. But if there's an open spot, at this point in the season, I'm giving a little more respect to those 2 Big 12 teams than I thought I would.
All right, I want to take a second here. I want to jump to some of the other scores as we're kind of waiting for this Alabama-Georgia game to get the final thought, and we're gonna react immediately as soon as the game ends. Thought we were going to be recapping it with like a minute and Jalen Milroe taking a knee. No, that is not what we're getting right now. Penn State versus Illinois. I don't want to take long analysis on these. I kind of want to rip through some of the other big games just to kind of hit them as this game's closing up. But Penn State 21, Illinois 7. I think that there's life to Illinois being a ranked squad at the end of the season. I think that they are not far off from USC. I know USC fans aren't going to like to hear that, but they are kind of the inverse where their defense is so good, it's keeping them alive. Luke Altmaier throws his first interception, but we're quickly reminded here that if Penn State needs to just outmuster a team by just a tinge, just like a little bit, they've got enough athletes on both sides of the football that they're going to do it. And I love Andy Kotelnicki, the madman that he is, having these offset offensive linemen that are all the way out 6 yards.
Very fun.
I'm here for the Kotelnicki craziness.
The Penn State this year is just proving that Penn State is still Penn State, where they can out-athlete you unless you're Michigan and Ohio State, which is going to be great theater as those games near closer. But right now, the rest of the Big Ten is still the rest of the Big Ten. I mean, you have Illinois and Indiana who are stepping up this year, which is good for the conference, being very good, solid teams. Illinois also, quarterback Altmaier stepping up, great haircut, especially for being in
bad
Illinois.
haircut. I said that earlier, and you're throwing that back in my face. Bad haircut, bad haircut.
I think I'm happy with Illinois being a very competent Big Ten team. That's what they should be. That's what their ceiling is. If they can create a little chaos, really push the top programs in the Big Ten. It's really disrespectful if you're hearing me say this and you're an Illinois fan, because, you know, I'm kind of just putting you in that box. Break out of the box and prove me wrong. Right now, you're just showing me that you're very good, but you're not great. And very good is better to be than very bad. So you should still be happy about it. Holding Penn State to 21 points, that's a win. I'm sure when they're going through there, when me and Joe were in college, our coach had a big whiteboard that we brought in every week What were our goals this week? Did we hit them?
Yeah.
You get a red X or you get a green check. I'm sure a lot of other programs do this. We weren't reinventing the wheel at Rhode Island. But I think that defense is going to have a lot of green checks on it. Offense, maybe some red X's. They play another weaker Big Ten opponent. It's greens across the board. Illinois having a season of mostly greens is a good thing. That's how you grow. It's how you get better. I would stay optimistic.
There's a lot of Big Ten headlines this week. Rutgers held off Washington's comeback bid last night. Look, just to simply put it, that Rutgers team should be ranked. I think that Rutgers team is top 7 at the very least in the Big Ten right now. They run the ball hard.
Oh, yeah.
Their quarterback, Callie McManus, is a little bit chaotic, and I think that makes them entertaining to keep track of. Oof, bad drop there by Lovett. They make them funny to keep track of. But if they're going to play defense the way that they do, and if they're going to run the football the way that they do, similar to other Big Ten programs, they deserve to be in that conversation. This Big Ten conference this year is deeper than usual. There's just a lot of stout teams. I don't think that Rutgers is a playoff program, but the improvement and their resume and the way that they step up and fight every single week, it deserves recognition.
Would you rank Rutgers before you ranked Navy?
What kind of a question is that? You want crack?
Just doing a little poking and prodding.
Okay.
That's all. Yeah, Rutgers running the rock like they have. Goodness, that is a huge 4th and 2 completion for Georgia. Oh, they're driving. Are we getting OT?
We might get overtime.
This is mad.
We might have to just sit here and wait.
Is Kirby a crazy enough person to go for 2 if they score and just try to get a sneak out of Alabama?
I think he is. I know Kalen is. I feel like Kalen definitely is.
Oh, yeah. If he's given the opportunity, he will. Goodness, what a game. Yeah, Rutgers is very solid, and to see their growth from when they were kind of the basement of the Big Ten, laughingstock Rutgers, we invented college football, but we're not that good anymore. Like that was their trademark for a little bit. And now I just attribute it to Pacheco and Kyle Monangai for just forcibly breathing life into the program by running the rock hard as hell and with crazy karate style, unorthodox running vision and movements and shaking up the Big Ten. But they are a much improved program if you look at it from the broad view.
Wisconsin and USC had a bit of an ugly duke it out match in the first half. There were just a ton of mistakes by both teams, especially by USC. But USC hang on as they produced just a ton of yards, a ton of big splash plays. Deuce Robinson had like a couple of big plays, who's their star receiver / tight end, who I think is getting better every single week. I have no idea where my pulse is with USC. I have no idea if USC is as good as they were against LSU, where we were super juiced up about them to the degree that we were willing to say that they were better than Michigan, that they were a top 3 Big Ten team. And then they're kind of coming back to reality where they're playing this pendulum swing of an inconsistent program where they can't just stay locked in for 4 quarters. Them getting the win is strong. Them doing it at home is strong, and it helps keep them afloat in this playoff conversation. But I just don't know when those lapses and those mistakes that they had against Wisconsin in the beginning of this game, when do they show up against tougher opponents that are going to take advantage of that?
Yeah.
Like they did against Michigan.
USC is a bit of a leaky boat right now. The boat is still up. No one's gone under yet, but you can tell eventually something's going to happen and they're going to sink. Maybe they don't get the running game going like they did today, mustering up 161 yards on the ground. Maybe Miller Moss throws 3 interceptions instead of 1 today, and that's where their Achilles heel happens. They have enough power on their offense to will out a win against Wisconsin. That's good for them, especially with how Wisconsin's opened up this game, cracked it open with some real Big Ten ball, playing a hard defense, forcing turnovers, punching the ball out, doing a lot of things that if you're supporting Wisconsin, you're fired up about. You're taking pride. Hey, you can't come in here Pac-12. This is how Big Ten plays the football. Well, maybe the Big Ten needs to play a little more Pac-12 ball, because USC, when they wanted to turn it on and started scoring dynamic, fun touchdowns, they did. And they ran the hell away with it. 38-21 is not an indicative score of how close it was in the first half.
Yeah.
And how many tightly clenched people there were in California starting this game off thinking their season was going to be over. But it's a good number to look at if you're USC. Like, oh yeah, It was tight, but we got away with that one. We were happy to score nearly 40 on Wisconsin, who's not a real powerhouse of the Big Ten, but someone that maybe we can routinely beat as we keep on growing in this conference.
Yeah, it was Braylon Allen is not afraid to point out that he has. It sounds like has some scuttlebutt on this Wisconsin program, because he said that I'm not going to say anything right now, but in a few years I'll end up on a podcast and sharing about what happened last year in his final year at Wisconsin. I kind of wonder what the deal is. I kind of feel like this Wisconsin program has been quite underwhelming. Michigan, Minnesota, oh, there's a flag there. Michigan, Minnesota, we didn't get like super close eyes on, but we were kind of we were tracking it because I placed a money line bet of -400 money line bet on Michigan. They're living and dying by what we saw them against USC. And I think that this is what the reality that Michigan fans are now going to live in, which is Khalil Mullings going for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Alex Orji didn't do anything on the ground in this game, but didn't surpass 90 passing yards, has a touchdown and an interception. They're kind of just praying that their defense hangs on and stays alive towards the end of football games.
And they should have hung on and kind of just stomped the neck of Minnesota in this game. Minnesota 21 points in the fourth quarter. Unacceptable. Beck, you did not.
Woo!
Carson Beck, you did not.
I have no words.
Okay.
All right, now we don't have to talk about stupid Michigan anymore. Let's actually, do you have any final thought? Okay, we're yelling about what just happened there. We're going to lead into the recap in a second, but Carson Beck, just everyone else is seeing this. Carson, and who's listening back on audio, Carson Beck, we just watched the play where he throws to the opposite side of the field. Damani Jackson, man, I said this. Blake, I love you, man, but I said this. I broke down the Wisconsin film, and I said that Damani Jackson's next up. This kid, is that Damani Jackson? Double check that secondary that they have is extremely underrated. And what was brought up, and by a lot of people that are countering the capabilities of what this team could do defensively, kept bringing up that Kalen DeBoer was uneasy about the youth that they had in their defense, and especially at cornerback.
Xavier Brown.
It was Xavier Brown who made the play. It was not Domani Jackson. Domani Jackson wears number 1. Xavier Brown's a true freshman. We saw Ryan Williams make a key play. We saw Xavier Brown make a key play. And what I brought up on the show that Blake and I got in an argument about, when I broke down that Wisconsin film, and it's on this channel, I called out that I thought that those 2 young cats at corner had so much potential. And it was so visible on tape that they're sticky in coverage, they're tremendous athletes, and they're not afraid to be aggressive and go after the football. That is an awesome, big balls having play by a true freshman. That's amazing. That is awesome. That is great shit by him.
I can't believe how this game shook out. This is a maddening game for anybody trying to get a read on either of these teams. I mean, did Georgia just think that they were going to roll over Alabama because they've been Georgia? It seems like it. It seems like they came in this game a little privileged, a little too big for their britches. It seemed to thought that their S didn't stink. And then your quarterback goes out and throws 3 picks, including a game loser, and 2 potential game losers at the beginning of the game, and consistently put the ball in harm's way all game. And then on the inverse, Jalen Milroe plays his ass off in maybe the cleanest first half of football that anybody has seen from a quarterback in this season, putting up 28 unanswered, 30 unanswered, whatever it was. And it goes down to this. What the hell do you even make of Alabama now just squeaking by after one of the most dominant first halves that you could have had against the powerhouse of Georgia?
Okay, here's a little bit of Alabama glazing coming in here.
Okay.
Let's talk about Alabama first. Let's talk about Georgia, and then we'll close out the show. What we saw from Alabama in the first half is reflective of what they're going to be the rest of this season. They very clearly, it didn't look like they were mistake prone. It did not look like they were having a ton of issues. They took their foot off the pedal way too much for whatever reason. Should not have done that. Should have tried to put up as many points as possible. Should have tried to keep this game out of reach. It felt like in the second half when we were trying to keep track of what was going on, you could kind of still feel that there was a little air left in the room for Georgia to sneak their way back in. And Georgia just grinded away like we know that they're built to do. You can't do that against a team like Georgia. But the first half was so reflective of what we knew that Alabama could be. That Jalen Milroe is a Heisman Trophy candidate, and I would argue maybe is the favorite after the way that he played today, just in the first half alone. The throws that he made, the rushing plays that he made, the instincts that he showed, all of those things continues to reaffirm to me what I said after the Wisconsin game is that they have the best offense in the SEC. This team is going to be a tough out because they're going to blow past you in the first three series that they have, and you're going to be forced to catch up. That's what this is. But Kalen DeBoer can't do that shit.
No.
It's a good thing that they didn't lose for Alabama fans and for Alabama's sake, but you need a game like this where you let a team, one of the best in the country, sneak their way back in to know that you can't take your foot off the pedal. When your foot is on the neck of an opponent, you got to finish them.
How impressive is Ryan Williams if we're just looking at it, not even from the he's 17 standpoint, which I think
Did
is...
you know he's 17?
Yeah, it's kind of the hacky conversation point around him and college football. He's got one unique thing about him, but he doesn't. His whole game is unique. His shiftiness is unique. His 6 catches for 177 yards against Georgia is unique. Add a tut onto that also. He's a genuine college football star at receiver that Alabama has that they didn't have last year. That Alabama's bread and butter. They were wide receiver university with a room full of first rounders year after year after year. They didn't have it at the tail end of Saban. Now, lo and behold, we got a guy. And we got a guy at quarterback that can run for 100+ yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. We got running backs like Jam Miller that are going to block their asses off, get their helmets taken off for Milroe to be able to run the ball. This offense plays like a true cohesive team and unit, and I can't overstate how impressed I am with Milroe's improvements. Mm-hmm. If you would have told me 2 years ago or even last year that sitting here tonight, Milroe would only have 6 incompletions, he'd throw for 374 yards and run for 117, I would have punched myself in the face. I would have said, you're a liar. There's no way Georgia would let that happen. And he has gone above and beyond expectations to a legitimate threat to winning the Heisman and everybody else in the SEC in an unprecedented improvement in turn.
I think I can say pretty confidently, I don't think any team has proven more than Alabama to this point that they're the best team in the country. And I know a lot of people are going to try and throw back into their face, well, they almost let them back into it. That's clear. There's clearly issues, blah, blah, blah. That is the wrong way to look at that game. It 1000% is the wrong way to put that into perspective. That is the best team in the country right now. It is the only team that has performed that well and still managed to survive a comeback attempt against another top 5 team. It's recognition needs to be given.
Yeah, the complete flip-flop of how you're treating the game in the first half and the second half, it happens with college football. It happens in the NFL. Comebacks happen because you either gas yourself in the first half or you start thinking it's all put away and packed away. And if I saw how Georgia played in the first half, I would have thought it was packed away. I put a big monetary bet on Georgia tonight. I couldn't even get upset about losing that money with how quickly they were down 21-0. It was literally, I couldn't even, was I yelling? Was I raging?
No, I completely forgot that you made that bet.
I was quietly, I wasn't even stewing. I was just shocked and disappointed. I was embarrassed for that program, how weak they looked, how undisciplined they looked, how bad Carson Beck looked delivering the ball down the field. I tweeted out he was seeing ghosts. You can't do that against Alabama. I guess he got him out of the vision in the second half. Maybe it's because Alabama was playing softer coverage. It wasn't keeping the pedal down, but it looked like they were. And Georgia's lack of like willingness to run the ball in the first half, I think plagued them. It really did. They turned it on the second half, said, all right, what do we have to do to move the ball down the field without having Carson Beck have to take it 25 yards over the air, take off the top? Well, let's run it between our good offensive line. And they did that, and they scrapped and clawed back in it. Georgia has to look at themselves in the mirror and say, what kind of team do we want to be? Are we going to be a team that has to rely on Carson Beck making every single play? Or are we going to do what the team that beat us did? Run the ball like hell, throw the ball like hell, and go with a relentless pursuit on offense to score points and not just hope things happen because we got a good quarterback and a couple good wide receivers in Arian Smith and Dylan Bell.
On the Georgia side of things, man, we look at the first half for Georgia. My reaction is not that they're cooked, but like it is an uphill battle for them to be
to wake up, to get in the zone of the game.
Let me rephrase that. The way that they played in the first half is a concern for how that they would show up and play in other big games this year. Something was off. Something felt just completely off. But that take gets thrown out the window by how locked in they got in the second half. I don't think, and just like I'm saying here, where Alabama deserves credit for the way that they performed, Georgia deserves credit for the way that they finished that game. Down as bad as they were, how ugly that game could have gotten in the first quarter and beyond, and they willed their way back. I think we just watched a game between the number 1 and the number 2 teams in the country. I think that's what we just saw. And it's not going to be reflected in the AP polls. It's not going to be reflected in any ranking until we get the college football playoff ranking and we get the final playoff ranking. I think that is going to be the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
I think that is clearly a matchup between two of the best teams. Georgia, if they started the game hotter and they played better at the start, it goes completely differently potentially. Maybe it would have been a more of a back and forth, duke it out type of a game. But we are reminded that even a banged up Georgia team, they're without their star guard Tate Ratledge, and I think Jared Wilson, their center, went down with an injury at one point. They still have that championship mindset and capability. What I was trying to lead in this point with about Georgia is don't let the first half distract you from the way that they performed in the second.
That's fair. I think Alabama stays at 1 until the end of the season. Their last real test on the schedule is Tennessee. I'm kind of throwing out the Missouri game after what I saw tonight.
They're going to beat Missouri.
I'm throwing out the LSU
and they're at
game.
home against Missouri. I think that they beat LSU because LSU's defense is cheeks.
Oklahoma is fraud watch. Auburn is fraud watch. They got to worry. They got to watch out for Mercer. Good defense on that Mercer team. But
they do have a good defense.
Just joking around about that. But yeah, Tennessee is their last real test of the schedule. And then, Georgia, they're going to have to get back off the mat, and we'll see what they do against Texas. That'll be an electric game because they'll get a nice cleanup game against Auburn. They'll wash Mississippi State, really get in their rhythm. That Georgia-Texas game may be game of the year, even better than this one, given all the stakes of it. Because if I'm Texas looking at this game, sitting at 1 after this week, knowing that I'm going to be dropped down after what just transpired here, I'm going to take a little offense to that. I'm going to sit here and say, I got to prove myself here. I got to make a name for myself and show how good we are. God, the SEC just got good again.
Yeah,
it took one game for the SEC to really get back to what people needed. Jesus Christ.
It almost looked like they were going to be boring as shit with Ole Miss losing today. But no, that was an amazing game. Oh. The aftermath of it's going to be crazy. I don't have anything else if you're...
I am worn out after.
Yeah,
after
watching that, I am legitimately
trying to do a cohesive show with all the topics and all the prep, and then having that go on in the background. Oh, can we? We should fucking pat ourselves on the back more. That was impressive.
No,
that was impressive.
I have some humbleness. Jesus, what the fuck?
You should be impressed with us.
We stink. We don't deserve any praise.
Uh-oh.
At Joe DeLeone, at Sanderson Radio, at Hack City Pod. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We're going to be back on Monday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time as usual. Enjoy the rest of your night.